So once again, another big bank gets off the hook for crimes. Now, it's funny how all this is just, it's got to be planned, it's got to be, there's a method to the madness. They wait a X amount of time before even doing anything so that people forget about other stuff. That way, when the other stuff happened first, you didn't want to bring JP Morgan into the mix yet. Right? We don't want to put them in the spotlight, because if they're going to punish a guy like old Bernie Madoff, who did the pyramid Ponzi scheme, send him to prison, take all his money away, then by God, they'd have to do that to other people who were complicit. You know, I mean, unless you wait a few years, 3 or 4 years, then people might kind of forget, and you'll just make sure that the news media doesn't really talk too much about the Bernie Madoff connection. You got to try to keep that separate, but I've been reading lately that they are talking about Bernie Madoff and how JP Morgan was actually tied to that. And what they're saying is that the regulators, is that JP Morgan knew in advance, knowingly, that Bernie Madoff was using this pyramid scheme. So if you know that someone's doing a pyramid scheme in the financial world, and you're also, your company is a financial company, you can't really get involved with that other person, because that's called, I don't know the actual term, but it's illegal. I mean, I've been reading about it all yesterday. Highly illegal. You can't knowingly put your investors, customers' money into something that you know is a pyramid or a Ponzi scheme. You just can't do that. But JP Morgan did just that. And it was exactly the same one that Bernie Madoff was involved in, because it was Bernie Madoff's scheme. So I'm reading that, which should have read something along the lines of Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, will be doing X amount of prison time, even if it's a couple months. At least it's something, but it's not. Matter of fact, what I read, which is exactly what you guessed, is the opposite. And that is JP Morgan to pay $2 billion fine to regulators to basically sweep under the rug any wrongdoings, anything that JP Morgan would have did that was attached to the old Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. So Bernie Madoff, who I've said this from day one, is not and never was a member of the club, goes to jail. The law, the justice system works for Bernie Madoff and the people. Hey, you investors lost billions of dollars? Don't worry, the guy's at least doing jail time, prison time. All right, little small golf clap. Little small golf clap because they lost their money. But hey, guy went to jail. Then you have JP Morgan, who was complicit. And if JP Morgan did not get involved, not so much money would have been lost or stolen. So you could look at it that way and say, well, the investors may not have been hurt as bad if JP Morgan never got involved in the first place. Right? The $50 billion, whatever the total was, Ponzi scheme, maybe it would have only been 40 billion, 30 billion. I don't know the numbers. So JP Morgan, through its head guy there, Jamie Dimon, of course, pays a $2 billion fine, and in that basically reads like this. There's not really going to be an admission of guilt. You're going to admit that you knew that you were doing something wrong, but in exchange for that $2 billion, you're going to pay the regulators. We're not going to look into it. We'll stop there. We'll draw the line. You're admitting you did something. We're accepting that you said you did something. What that something is and what the scale and the extent of that something is will remain a secret forever, because we're not going to look into it because you're paying the fine. So let me ask you, to be fair, where was Bernie Madoff's fine? I mean, he basically stole $50 billion from people. He could have used a little bit of that. He could have used $2 billion. Hey, here you go, regulators, look the other way. He wasn't a member of the club. He is not a member of the club. Therefore, you get no extraordinary powers against being prosecuted. And I was reading over at Zero Hedge the list of crimes, financial crimes, to date, public knowledge, all recorded, everybody, you know, there's no conspiracy, it's all regulators have, you know, acknowledged all these things. Of everything that JP Morgan has done illegally, highly illegal in the financial world, from rigging the prices of wheat and cotton or whatever, to rigging the energy market, to rigging the municipal bond market, all these, again, all these things. Yes, we did something, we did do something, but don't look, regulators, let's settle at a court. Remember that movie Friday? I like to refer to that movie Friday. It's one of my favorite comedy movies. And they meet the crackhead over there at the corner store, and the crackhead, his name is Ezel. Old Ezel is trying to steal stuff from the store. He's trying to figure out a way to get some money from the store because he's a crackhead, he ain't got no money. And he does a fake slip and fall. And we can settle out of court right now for $150,000. No, get up, get out of here. $5 or $20. No, $2 for some food stamps, or $1 in a pack of envelopes. No, get the hell out of here. Damn. That is exactly what JP Morgan, the crackhead, did. We can settle out of court right now for $2 billion. Except instead of saying no, get the hell out of here, the regulators do what they always do and say, sure, sounds good. So the question remains, who put the rule in existence long ago when these quote-unquote regulatory agencies were created in the United States to look after our financial interests? And who decided that part of the rules that they can decide what, you know, whether they want to prosecute or not, one of those rules states they can just pay a fine and don't worry about it. Because you could commit the biggest, most despicable financial crime on the face of the earth. Literally, you could basically steal everybody's money somehow through JP Morgan's banking system. Just steal everybody's money. And then have the authorities or the regulators say, yeah, we know you took, you know, $4 trillion of the people's money, but we can settle out of court right now for $2 trillion. $1 trillion a pack of envelopes? $1 billion in some food stamps? or stamps? Because they stole 4 or 5 trillion. Take some of the loot. You know what I mean? This is the equivalent, I swear to you, this is the equivalent of a bank robber holding up a bank at gunpoint, terrifying people, shooting gun rounds into the roof. This is a holdup. You know they're serious. They just shot through the roof. We want to empty out the vault now. Yes, sir. Boom, 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 boom. Take the money. They make off with a couple $1 million. And they get caught. And the prosecution, the state prosecution that's going to burn these guys for what they've done, turns around and says, we'll settle with you. You're just going to admit that you know you did something wrong in regards to what happened at the bank robbery. You don't have to tell us what you did. We won't even look at the video camera footage to see what you did. Just pay $500,000 in fines and penalties, and this will go away. Oh, and also here, you got to sign here. You can't rob any more banks, even though we know we're not charging you with robbing a bank. You can't rob any more banks for 2 years. 2 years. Okay, sounds good. They sign it. 2 years later, they can go rob a bank again. In other words, like JP Morgan, you can't get into municipal bonds anymore because you defrauded county governments. But we settled out of court with you then. You paid a fine. And we told you can't dabble in those particular types of municipal bonds for 2 years. And then you can get back into it again. That stupid example of a bank robbery I just gave you is absolutely 100% the equivalent of what JP Morgan does. Except, have you ever seen a bank robbery of any kind on the face of the earth throughout all of history that is the equivalent of the amount of money JP Morgan has defrauded and stolen, etc., that was in question all these years? From the bond market, rigging the commodities, rigging the energy markets, the wheat, the corn, or the cotton, municipal bonds, all of this, the LIBOR rate, they're all involved in that. All that added up is the biggest bank robbery in the history of the world. And the bank robbers get away by paying a fine, because the regulators who tell them and have the authority as to how bad it's going to be against them were at one point or another working for those same companies, and know when they leave the regulatory agency and they retire early, they're going to go back and work for the same company that they let off the hook in the first place, because they're going to get a phenomenal salary over there, strictly because they looked the other way when they were a regulator. Doesn't that sound kind of like our Congress? Hey people, this is what I'm about. We got to stop this, I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to take care of this. Vote for me. They vote for him. Now that I'm in the office, I'm not going to fix that. I will not be dealing with that, and I sure as hell am not even going to look over that way. Who's got the biggest campaign contributions for me? I'm going to spend 7 to 8 hours a day, which was told by a former congressman on the Glenn Beck show a couple years ago, that they spend all their time, most of their time, not all of it, but about 3/4, if not more, of their time seeking campaign contributions while in office, while in literally their own office, when they should be dealing with listening to the people, reaching out to the community, finding out what needs to be fixed, what changes do we need to be made, do I need to make as a congressman? And instead, they want to see how much money they can get in campaign contributions. And every time a nice sized campaign contribution comes in, there's a little letter attached to it that basically says, hey, we need some change over here, right? Like what you're supposed to be doing for the people, bringing change that's needed for the people. We're the people, kind of. We're a corporation, but the Supreme Court said we're people. And we need to get this little regulation thing over here that's kind of like a thorn in our foot. We need to get rid of that. It's kind of bothering us. So here's $50,000 campaign contribution, and here's the absolute legislation already written, pre-written for you, perfectly written. Could you put that through Congress, you think? Oh, and by the way, 10 of your other pals who are on this special committee, I gave them a little bonus too, with the same letter. So just get with them and come together and try to pass this into law. Appreciate that. Take care. Now, our campaign contribution as society, as citizens here, is the fact that we let you become this congressman, and we're giving you a very nice salary, very nice health care, very nice retirement, very nice everything. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So the other people who are doing the opposite of what is needed in society are paying off everybody to get what they want done. So in a legitimate democracy, that does not happen. In a first world superpower country, that does not happen. So since it has been happening for quite a while now, do you suppose that this first world country is on its way to third world status, and that this democracy, allegedly, this fake shell of a democracy is starting to be exposed now, and people realizing there's a carcass left, is going to have to turn into something else? Well, I'll let you decide by just go reading a little bit of history, because history says that's exactly what happens. When you have bank robbers, aka JP Morgan and friends, getting away with the biggest bank heist in the history of the world, numbers that are mind-blowing, getting out of it without even a charge, without even a criminal charge. Even if they didn't do jail time, not even the criminal charge. Like, okay, here's your charge and here's the weakest sentence we can give you. Because even the weakest sentence is going to be jail time. Can't have that. Let's just do the opposite, because we can choose, as regulators, we can choose to do jail time, prison time, or pay a fine. And time after time after time, it's pay a fine. unless you're someone like Bernie Madoff or nobody who's not part of this financial elite club. Then you do jail time. Then the rule of law works, and they parade this around. They put it on all the news channels. They repeat it and show it and put it in your face. They nailed this guy. Pictures of him in handcuffs over and over and over again. Video handcuffs, picture handcuffs. They let you know, we got you guys. We got your back. We're the regulators. Regulators, mount up. It's time to regulate with Warren G. So, begs the question, are we in a true democracy or an oligarchy, which is a friend network of people ruling the rest of us? I think it's pretty obvious. Take care.